Vaishnavaha Mumukshavaha Swagatam Swagatam. A warm welcome to all the delegates, the assembled devout listeners who have flocked from various nations to immerse in the 3-day Triveni Sangama of Vishnu. Just as anyone who sips even a drop of the Parama Pavitra Ganga Jala is a Gangeya, similarly, anyone and everyone who have assembled for this 3-day international conference Similarly, anyone and everyone who has assembled for this 3-day international conference of Bhakti in Vaishnava tradition is a Bhagavata. It is again a Triveni Sangama with the Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, the Stockholm University, Sweden, and Bhaktivedanta Research Center jointly organizing this seminar. A warm welcome to the organizing committee, myself, Dr. Sridhar Vasudevan Bhavani Iyer, am the moderator of this inaugural session. We begin the session with a prayer to Goddess Saraswati, the eternal witness to all intellectual deliberations and talks of wisdom. I request Dr. Medha Deshpande, Faculty, Department of Sanskrit, to seek the blessings of Ma Sharada by her soulful prayers. Let us all join in the same.
धन्यवादः. नमस्ते शारदे देवी सरस्वती मतिप्रदे वसत्वं मम कंठाग्रे सुरागकर्णी भव सुरागकर्णी भव श्रीमच्छंकर देशिकेन्द्र भगवत संपूजिता मुत्तमा लक्ष्म्यादित्रित यान्विता सुखमयी श्रीचक्रयन्तस्थिता विश्वोत्पत्ति लयस्थितिं विदधति श्रीराजराजेश्वरी शृंगेरी पुरवासिनी भगवती श्री शारदाम्बां भजे द्वैताद्वैत मतानुयाय्यभिमता विद्वद्वरैर्वन्दिता सर्वैर्दर्शन संग्रहैर्विरचिता ख्यातः कणन्नु पुरा मोहद्भान्त विनाशिनी कलिमला प्रध्वंसिनी तारिणी शृंगेरी भजे वेदोद्यान विहारिणी उपनिषद तत्त्वार्थ संरक्षिणी नानाशास्त्र कलापिनी मुखलसत् ब्रह्म प्रभाशोभिनी तुंगातीर समुल्लसत्वनमुखा सौन्दर्यमास्वादिनी शृंगेरी पुरवासिनी भगवती श्री शारदाम्बां भजे शृंगेरी पुरवासिनी भगवती श्री शारदाम्बां भजे श्री शारदाम्बां भजे श्री शारदाम्बां भजे।
Thank you, Dr. Medha Deshpande. I now welcome Dr. Shakuntala Gavde, Head Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, Dr. Sumanta Rudra, Dean, Bhaktivedanta Research Center, Dr. Gopal Gupta, Associate Professor, Joe Dunham, Distinguished Professor in Ethics, Aurora University, Illinois, USA, Dr. Madhavi Narsale, Associate Professor, Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, Acharya Srivatsa Goswami, Acharya Radharaman Mandir, Honorable President, Religions for Peace, the chairperson for today's session, Professor Dr. Ravindra Kulkarni, the Pro Vice Chancellor of University of Mumbai, Krishna Bhakta Srila Gauranga Das Ji, Governing Body Commissioner, ISKCON, and also Director, ISKCON Govardhan Eco Village, and Trustee and Director of Bhaktivedanta Research Center. And Shri will also deliver the special lecture today. Dr. Ferdinando Serradella, Associate Professor, History of Religions, Stockholm University, Sweden. A warm, pleasant, nectar-drizzling welcome to all. Welcome, dear dignitaries and all converged audience, for it is said in Srimad-Bhagavatam, Asare Sausare Vishaya Visha Sanga Kuladiyaha Kshanartam Kshemartam Bibata Shukagata Tulata. So I now request Dr. Shakuntala Gavde, Madam, to welcome the delegates and brief the session. Madam Shakuntala Gavde.
Namo Namaha. Vedanuddharate jagannivahate bhugolamudbibhrate daityam dharayate balim chalayate kshatrakshayam purvate paulastyam jayate halam kalayate karunyamatanvate mricchan murchayate dashakruti krute krishnaya tubhyam namaha indivara indirananda kandalam vandarujana mandaram vandeham yadunandanam. Vaishnava Sampradaye Bhakti iti Vishayam Anulakshya Ayojitesmin Antararashtriya Vidvat Sangoshtyaha Udghatana Karyakrame Sarvebhyah Hardam Swagatam. Charcha Satresmin Udghatana Bhashanartham Samupasthitanam Pradhyapaka Gopal Gupta Mahodayanam Atra Hardam Swagatam. Charcha Satrasya Bija Bhashanasya Vaktaraha Santi परम आदरणीयः श्रीवत्स गोस्वामी महाभागाः महोदयेभ्यः मम सादरं प्रणामाः स्वागतं च अत्र समुपागतेभ्यः विद्वद्गणेभ्यः प्राध्यापकेभ्यः छात्रवृन्देभ्यः सर्वेभ्यश्च हार्दं स्वागतं व्याहरामि। नमो नमः। अयि मान्याः विद्वद्वरेण्यः संशोधकाः छात्राः प्राध्यापकाश्च सर्वेभ्यः भूयांसि नमांसि। welcome to all. I heartily welcome you all in the 3-day international conference on Bhakti in Vaishnava traditions, organized by Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, in collaboration with Stockholm University, Sweden, and Bhaktivedanta Research Center, Mumbai. I take this opportunity here to present department profile in brief. Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, was established in 1963. Department was headed by stalwarts like Professor H.D. Velankar, Professor Mainkar, Professor S.A. Dange, Professor Sindhu Dange, Professor Uma Vaidya, and Professor Gauri Mahulikar. Department received gracious donation from Bajaj Foundation and University of Mumbai for its independent building, now known as Ramakrishna Bajaj Sanskrit Bhavan, located in campus of University of Mumbai. Department of Sanskrit is continuously engaged in teaching and research of Sanskrit, which is in tune with the motto Sanskritam Janaya, that is Sanskrit for all. Department conducts PhD and master's degree programs in Sanskrit and 10 different part-time courses, including certificate, diploma, and advanced diploma in Sanskrit, PG diploma in mysticism and advanced PG diploma in mysticism, PG diploma in mythology, diploma in manuscriptology, certificate and diploma courses in Bhakti literature. Department has organized number of lecture series and workshops on variegated themes. This year is celebrated by department as Professor Sadashiv Ambadange birth centenary year. Department has notable publications and seminar proceedings. Annual national seminar is a feature of Sanskrit department. Department has been organizing seminars on manuscriptology, narrative literature, comparative poetics, aesthetics, mysticism, Vaishnava Puranas, etc. International seminar on hermeneutics, a way and method in religious studies, was organized in collaboration with Bhaktivedanta Research Center in the year 2019. Department of Sanskrit has completed UGC UP projects recently. Department of Sanskrit has given significant contribution to Marathi Vishwakosh since 2016. Now, with this note, let me present the preamble of the conference. Bhakti is the special loving relation between the devotee and the God. Narada Bhakti Sutra defines Bhakti as Satu Asmin Parama Prema Rupa Amruta Swarupacha. Bhakti flourished in Vaishnava traditions with new dimensions. Vaishnava traditions revere Vishnu in different manifestations, including his 10 popular incarnations. Krishna Bhakti is the significant part of many Vaishnava traditions. Post-Shankara Vedantins considered Vishnu or Krishna as Parabrahman. Bhakti was not just a means to realize moksha, to attain liberation, but it was considered as the means and the end. Hari Bhakti Mahadevyaha Sarvaha Muktyadi Siddhayaha Muktayascha Adbhutaha Tasyaha Chetikavad Anuvrataha. All types of muktis and siddhis literally wait upon to save Hari Bhakti. That is the glory of Bhakti, which is considered by all Vaishnava traditions. Bhakti movement opened a path of liberation to all, irrespective of gender, caste, and creed. Though it is said that Bhakti movement started in 7th century CE by Alvars, concept of Bhakti is traced back to ancient Vedic literature. We can see roots of Bhakti in Vedic literature, Upanishads, and epics. Texts like Bhagavad-Gita and Bhagavata provided strong basis to the Bhakti philosophy. Concept of Navada Bhakti developed in Puranic literature, particularly in Bhagavata Purana. Concept of Bhakti received various philosophical dimensions in different cults and traditions. Stotras of Shankaracharya are replete with Bhakti principles. Then Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave special status to Bhakti, considering it superior to other paths of liberation. It gave rise to genre of Bhakti literature, including Stotra, Sutra treatises like Narada Bhakti Sutra, Shandilya Bhakti Sutras, as well as Shastra treatises like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Bhakti was also identified as a rasa by Rupa Goswami. Many regional cults like Varkari tradition of Maharashtra considered Bhakti as a philosophy of life. Saints like Jnaneshwar, Tukaram, Namdev, Janabai exemplified Bhakti through their life as well as literary compositions. Bhakti is the soul of philosophical schools developed as a part of Braja Vaishnavism. Jagannath cult of Orissa Vaishnavism is very significant from the context of Bhakti perspective. Concept of Bhakti has wide scope in Shaiva, Shakta, Jain, Sikh, and Buddhist traditions. This seminar focuses on exploring various dimensions of Bhakti as reflected in different Vaishnava traditions. So we have taken broad themes for this seminar, that is Bhakti in Vishishtadvaita, Bhakti in Dvaita philosophy, Bhakti in Pushti Sampradaya, Bhakti as a rasa, Braja Bhakti school, Bhakti in Varkari cult, Bhakti in Bhagavata Purana, Bhakti in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Bhakti reflected in cults like Jagannath cult of Orissa. So this is on these lines, we have curated this particular conference jointly with Bhaktivedanta Research Center, Mumbai and Stockholm University, Sweden. Once again, I welcome Dr. Gopal Gupta, Associate Professor Joe Dunham, Distinguished Professorship and Professor in Ethics, Aurora University. We are thankful to him as he graciously agreed to inaugurate this conference in spite of being in different time zone. My humble salutations to respected Srivatsa Goswami ji, who is present as a keynote speaker. We consider this as our great fortune that we will be hearing his nectar-like words on Bhakti. I welcome you, Adaraniya Srivatsa Goswami ji. I thank and welcome Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Suhas Pednekar, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor Professor Ravindra Kulkarni, Professor Rajesh Kharat, Dean Humanities, University of Mumbai. Then I welcome all respected chairperson of the various sessions, dignitaries, respected scholars, professors, dear students, and all practitioners of Vaishnavism. I welcome you all. Thank you.
True, madam, for it is rightly said, Sadasevya Srimad-Bhagavati Katha Yasyaha Shravana-matrena Hari Chittam Samashrayi. Thank you. I think that is the main purpose, that Hari should enter into our hearts. So they are Ravindra. I now request Dr. Sumanta Rudra, Dean, Bhaktivedanta Research Center, to welcome the delegates and the assembly. Sir Sumanta Rudra.
Thank you, Dr. Sridhar. It is my great privilege and honor to welcome everyone to this international conference on Bhakti in Vaishnava tradition, organized by the Department of Sanskrit, Mumbai University, in association with Stockholm University and Bhaktivedanta Research Center. I take this opportunity to update everybody about Bhaktivedanta Research Center. I have a small presentation which I will go through. Bhaktivedanta Research Center had 4 pillars of missions for Vaishnava traditions, that is, collect manuscript mission, preserve, research, and teach of Vaishnava tradition. We have right now branches in Kolkata, Mumbai, Pune, Vrindavan, Puri. The Mumbai is affiliated to University of Mumbai for a PhD and MA program in the Department of Philosophy. We are affiliated to the Savitri Bai Phule University. We have been doing several conferences in the past couple of years with logic-based therapies, Stockholm University, and these are our other partners with whom we have done multiple conferences. The history of Bhaktivedanta Research Center was that it was founded by Dr. Ferdinando Sardella, Associate Professor, Stockholm University, Sweden, and Dennis Harrison from Australia in 2009. While pursuing his PhD at Stockholm University, Dr. Sardella found a very rare collection of a 100-year-old library book with ancient books, journal, and manuscript in Bengali, Sanskrit, and English on the history, philosophy, and wisdom of literature and religion of Bengal, that is Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and today's Bangladesh. The collection was about to be sold and shipped abroad to an international institute Dr. Sardela worked hard to ensure that the literary treasure was kept back in India, which led to the foundation of Bhaktivedanta Research Center. The center has about 2,380 very rare books and 70,000 pages of journal, which are no more available in any library. This is the picture of our library in Kolkata, and these are the sections of rare books. Some of the very special Gaudiya Vaishnava literature and journals which we carry are Nadia Prakash Gaudiya, Sajjan Toshni, The Harmonist, Vishnu Priya, Bhagavad, Surya Siddhant, Sajjana Sadhana, Prema Gauranga, Ujvina, Sri Sudarshana, Navadip Pradipa. These were all published in the 19th, 20th century, these Gaudiya journals and Vaishnava journals which are with us. The Daily Nadia Prakash was the only spiritual daily newspaper in the world. Bhaktivedanta Research Center has physically preserved with lamination over 5,000 issues of this daily newspaper spread over 20 years and bound them in 62 volumes. We have also digitized the entire collection of 40,000 digital image. Nadia Prakash began in 1926 as an English daily semi-weekly. Later in 1928, it became a Bengali daily and continued till 1947. These are the 40,000 pages. If you see in the screen, this is when we got this newspaper. This was the condition which BRC received it, and it went through scanning, preservation process, and all this. On the left-hand side was the original image. On the right-hand side, these very, very rare manuscript was conserved. And we did swab test and litmus test to protect these, and all these now endangered manuscript had been preserved. BRC also does manuscript mission, and ancient precious manuscripts in India are getting worn out, eaten by worms, or burnt even as we speak. According to the National Manuscript Mission of India, the estimated number of manuscript in India is over 1 crore, perhaps the largest collection in the world. More importantly, a mere 3.3% of the estimated 1 crore manuscript has been digitized by the Manuscript Mission and its partner. And the remaining 96.7% of the manuscript needs to be urgently being recovered or being preserved. And BRC has gone to Bangladesh and several other countries and temples in India like Govinda Jevdi Temple, Gaur Kishore Shanti Kunja Temple, Gauranga Tol Mandir, Shantipur Shahitya, Chaitanya Mandir in Patna, and conserved many of these manuscripts and brought it back. We have several rare manuscripts on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ujjwala Ninamani, Chaitanya Chandrodaya, Hari Bhakti Vilas, Lagu Bhagavatamrita, Alankar Kaustubha, and Govinda Bhashya. They are preserved in an original condition in our library. These are the pictures of some of the manuscript. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela we have, and this is how the manuscript conservation team does the manuscript conservation. Some pictures of the same. And this is when the team goes and they conserve the manuscript so that they are preserved properly. We also did a 2-day international online workshop on the various aspects of manuscriptology and paleography with Asiatic and Stockholm University. We support several scholars nationally and internationally to help them procure rare manuscript for their research work. We have several research assistants who are working currently. BRC having 20 research projects with 7 international scholars, 7 national scholars, and 15 research assistants. These are some of our international research scholars who are working on several projects with us. One of the important projects is Bhagavad tradition in Maharashtra, where we are working with Dr. Shakuntala Gowde as the principal investigator, and Oxford Center for Hindu Studies with Dr. Ravi Gupta and Kenneth Walpe. Apart from that, we are doing one very important research, that philosophical counseling with reference to the ancient Indus text. For this particular, we are working on Srimad-Bhagavatam, how Srimad-Bhagavatam can be referred for philosophical counseling. Projects are Vaishnava Encyclopedia, Concept Matter of Bhagavad-Gita, Personal Diary of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Foundation of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Maharas Manjusha, Saraswati Jayashri, and Swalithika Jivani, Puri and Braj Association of Bhakti, Patachitra in Odisha and Jagannath culture, Krishna Chaitanya, the hidden treasure, Indic personalism, history and literature of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and Gaudiya Bhashya translation. We have done more than 30 conferences with leading institutions like Yale University, Jadavpur University, Mumbai University, Calcutta University, Savitribai Phule University, Ramakrishna Ruya College, and Ramakrishna Shikhar Vidya Mandir. So these are some of the conferences which we have done in the past. like Vaishnavism, theory and practice, relevance, role and resurgence of Vaishnavism in 21st century, Gaudiya Vaishnavism and ecology. Also, several workshops has been done. We also conduct lecture series like Bhagavad-Gita, philosophical deconstruction with Raman Ruya College, deciphering pilgrim network on the basis of Panda records, and the expansive musical aesthetics in Padavali Kirtan. Chaitanya desires Vaishnava and academia, religion, diversity and spirit of devotion, universal application of mantra and puja. With that, I once again welcome you all to this conference. I would like to thank Dr. Shakuntala Gowde, Associate Professor, Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, Dr. Ferdinando Sardella, Associate Professor, Stockholm University, for their diligent effort in organizing the conference. I would now like to once again welcome Dr. Gopal Gupta, Professor Dr. Gopal Gupta, Associate Professor, Joe Dunham University Professor in Ethics, Aurora University, Illinois, USA. Keynote address that would be delivered by Acharya Srivatsa Goswami of Acharya Radharaman Mandir, and the valedictory section which will be delivered on the 23rd by His Holiness Shri Tridandi Chinajir Swami. Apart from that, we have distinguished scholars who will be speaking for the next 3 days, and we are all looking forward to this wonderful conference. Thank you so much.
Yes, Bhashe, or it is truly said, Yatra Bhagavati Varta, Tatra Bhaktyadikam Vraje, Katha Shabdam Samakarnya, Tatra Trikam Tarunayati. Indeed, we are all blessed by this. I now request my teacher and assistant professor, Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, Dr. Madhavi Narsale, Madam, to introduce Dr. Gopal Gupta ji, who will read the keynote address of the seminar. Madam Madhavi Narsale.
Namo Namaha. It is my proud privilege to introduce Professor Dr. Gopal Gupta in this August gathering of scholars. Professor Dr. Gopal Gupta is the first Joy Dunham Distinguished Professor of Ethics at the Aurora University, Illinois. Maths and science fascinated him, but later on, science, religion, and ethics engaged him more. He has his master's degree in electrical engineering, but later on he received a master's degree in science and religion from Oxford University. He wrote his thesis on human suffering and Maya. The book Maya in the Bhagavata Purana, Human Suffering and Divine Play, was published by his book was published by the Oxford University Press. So we have such an illuminating personality with us and a great scholar, and we can see that how science and spirituality can coexist together. It is not science versus spirituality, but it is science and spirituality. So with these words, I welcome Professor Dr. Gopal Gupta ji to this seminar and request him to give the inaugural speech. Thank you.
Thanks, teacher. And I cannot resist myself saying this, quoting a Subhashita, Vidusham Vadanat Vachaha, Vidusham Vadanat Vachaha Sahasa Yantino Bahidi, Yataschedna Paranchanti Viradam Rada Eva. Thank you, teacher. I now request Acharya Shri Srivatsa Goswami ji. I now request Dr. Gopal Gupta ji to please present the keynote address. Gopal Gupta ji.
Namaste. Thank you very much. It's my great pleasure to be here today. Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I would like to offer my respects, my appreciation, my gratitude to all the organizers of this very historic, very profound conference on Bhakti. I think the first of its kind. I've never actually seen a conference on Bhakti being organized in such a, any conference, but especially in such a extensive, detailed, and elaborate way. Many thanks to Professor Shakuntala Gowde, to Sumantra Rudra, and to Dr. Ferdinando Sardella. I had the opportunity of actually working with him at the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies when he was doing his work there. I was also doing my work there, and very grateful to be with old friends, with many illustrious scholars, and with all of you who have come and joined this wonderful conference and given us your wonderful presence. So Dr. Gade mentioned how Bhakti is in its earliest forms found in the Bhagavad Purana and the Bhagavad-Gita. So my talk today will focus on the Bhagavad Purana and the Bhagavad-Gita. The title of my talk is The Many Forms of Love, Reflections from the Bhagavad Purana and the Bhagavad-Gita. In my paper, I explore how there's so many different forms of bhakti, different moods, different flavors of bhakti that are being spoken about in these two very profound works. We actually have many Bhagavata scholars currently working on the Bhagavad Purana. And so what I will offer is just a small little contribution to be much surpassed by the future presenters. So I will begin now. Would you like me to share my paper as I read it, or is it better just that I speak it?
Yes, you can if you're willing. Sure.
Okay, sure, I will do that, yes. The Bhagavata's 10th book describes how the enchanting sound of Krishna's flute would awaken feelings of ardent love in the hearts of the cowherd gopis of Braja. Nishamya Geetam Tadananga Vardhanam. When on a moonlit night Krishna sounds his flute, the gopis run to him in great haste, setting aside all else in their village lives. Whatever they may have been doing prior to that sound, attending to their babies, husband, and cows, boiling milk, applying makeup, and so on, is summarily dropped as they rush toward that sound, even as various family members attempt to block their way. Not all the gopis, however, are so fortunate. Some are locked in their rooms and thus are prevented from being with Krishna. With no external means of achieving union with the object of their love, these imprisoned gopis absorb themselves in deep meditation, samadhi, on their beloved Krishna. The Bhagavata declares in this connection that both those who were able to meet Krishna and those who were prevented from doing so achieved perfection in yoga. Moreover, even though the imprisoned gopis meditated on Krishna not as the supreme being, but rather as their personal lover, their viraha bhakti nonetheless united them with Krishna. The Bhagavata explains that the intense pain of separation from Krishna, viraha tivra tapa, burned away the gopis' past karma and unshackled them from bodies comprised of the gunas. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary writes, for those gopis who could not go to see Krishna, intolerable separation from their beloved caused an intense agony that burned away all impious karma. By meditating upon him, they realized his embrace, and the ecstasy they then felt exhausted their material piety. Although Lord Krishna is a supreme soul, these girls simply thought of him as their male lover and associated with him in that intimate mood. Thus their karmic bondage was nullified, and they abandoned their gross material bodies. In his commentary, Vishwanatha suggests that when the gopis' material bodies were burned by the fire of separation from Krishna, they regained awareness of their eternal spiritual forms. Endowed with the appropriate identity and mood, the gopis then experienced the infinite bliss of meditatively embracing the astonishing divine body of Achyuta, Krishna. which was full of love for them. Reflecting on these passages in his book, Viraha Bhakti, Freedom Hardy points out that the Bhagavata presents two distinct forms of bhakti: normative bhakti, quiet contemplation, and emotional bhakti, an intense form of bhakti directed toward Krishna. In Hardy's view, while the normative form is found in the Bhagavad-Gita, the Bhagavata's emotional form is not found in that work. While this understanding of the Gita's presentation of bhakti at first sight seems correct, there are nonetheless a small number of Gita verses that hint at something more than mere quiet contemplation. Within the bhakti traditions, there is a common understanding that because God is absolute, he is present in descriptions of his names, forms, qualities, activities, and words. Thus, it is said that when sincere bhakti practitioners gather together to recite, discuss, and exchange words about Krishna, Krishna becomes directly manifest, quickening feelings of ecstatic love, accompanied by shivering of the body, flows of tears from the eyes, and other such symptoms. In the Gita's 10th chapter, Krishna appears to describe such bhaktas, declaring that their thoughts dwell in him, their lives are completely dedicated to him, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss, tushyanti cha ramanti cha, by always speaking of him and exchanging realizations. Apart from this, in the 11th chapter, after seeing Krishna's universal form, Arjuna speaks of the intimacy and casualness of his own friendship with Krishna, and he does so in terms that sound much like descriptions of the more intimate and spontaneous forms of bhakti found in the Bhagavata Purana. Thus, Hardy's assertion regarding bhakti of the Bhagavad-Gita appears to be overly simplistic. In regards to the Bhagavata, Hardy's assertion also appears to be somewhat reductive. Vaisnava texts such as the Bhagavata present a taxonomy of the various levels, moods, and types of bhakti. To begin, the Bhagavata draws a distinction between alloyed and unalloyed bhakti. On the alloyed side stand forms of devotion to Krishna that are practiced with a selfish motive in mind. These can be viewed as bhakti mixed with one or more of a multitude of self-centered aims, that is, devotion that is tinged with the desire for profit, adoration, distinction, material gain, knowledge, power, the avoidance of suffering, and even liberation from material bondage and illusion. All these bhakti admixtures fall short of the Bhagavata's lofty standards because they are tinged, regardless of how slightly, with impure motivations and desires. In the Bhagavata's third book, Kapila divides these mixed forms of bhakti into three categories based upon the gunas. Devotion in tamas, which is expressed by those whose bhakti remains tainted by lower qualities, such as envy, pride, anger, etc. Devotion in rajas, which is expressed by those whose bhakti is tainted by the desire for material enjoyment, fame, power, opulence, etc. And devotion or bhakti in sattva, which is expressed by those whose bhakti is tainted by the desire for higher knowledge and liberation from material bondage and suffering. In all these cases, the so-called bhakta wants something in return for services rendered. But what of those that are purely devoted to Krishna? Kapila distinguishes them by pointing out their spontaneous attraction for hearing and speaking about the qualities, activities, and characteristics of the Lord, who is said to reside in the hearts of all. Kapila notes that just as the Ganges river flows inexorably to the sea, so does the attraction of the purely devoted flow inexorably toward Krishna. No worldly condition or attraction can impede its spontaneous course. He also notes that the purely devoted reject not only all types of material benefit, but all types of liberation as well. In other words, according to the Bhagavata, those that have achieved the level of unalloyed bhakti ask nothing of Krishna save the continued opportunity to be engaged in his loving service. They do not desire relief from the cycle of birth and death, nor do they fear any condition of life. For them, heaven, hell, and liberation are exactly the same. In the Bhagavata, therefore, we find alloyed types of bhakti that are motivated by desires for material reward. And we also find unalloyed types of bhakti, which are motivated only by the desire to please Krishna. Let us further explore unalloyed forms of bhakti, spontaneous attraction to Krishna's service, leading ultimately to the perfection of prema, pure love of God. But there is one more nuance in the Bhagavata's bhakti taxonomy that needs to be discussed. This nuance concerns the nature of unalloyed bhakti itself, which is differently displayed by two types of unalloyed devotees. One, those that are fully aware of Krishna as God, and who thus exhibit awe and veneration for his greatness, always remembering their position of subordination to the Lord. And two, those that are drawn to the qualities, charm, and beauty of Krishna as Krishna, and who thus become involved with him in a form of intimate, spontaneous, loving exchange that is completely free and open, unhindered, per Yogamaya's arrangement, by cognizance of Krishna's status as a supreme being, the origin of all, and so forth. Although the Bhagavata does not appear to provide concise definitions of these two flavors of unalloyed devotion, both are vividly on display throughout the work. And interestingly, later traditions, most of the Vaishnava traditions, further develop and label, they name these specific flavors of devotion. The Bhagavata doesn't do it explicitly, but the Bhagavata gives examples of these states of unalloyed devotion. The first, on veneration, which is said to be found in both the temporal and the absolute Vaikuntha realm, is exemplified in the discourses, tales, and prayers of such Vaishnava notables as Kunti, in the first book, Brahma, Devahuti, Dhruva, Chitraketu and Vritasura, Prahlada, Bali, and Ambarisha, as well as in descriptions of Vaikuntha found in the Bhagavata's third book. The second, intimate, spontaneous, loving exchange, without knowledge of Krishna's greatness as God, is found within Goloka Vrindavan, the highest planet of the absolute realm, where Krishna is said to personally enjoy in Raja with his confidential servants, friends, parents, and conjugal lovers. The Bhagavata dedicates a good portion of its 10th book, the largest book of all, to descriptions of this realm, or more precisely, its non-different facsimile here on earth. Within the pages of this 10th book, we encounter tales of the residents of Vrindavan who are involved in intimate, loving relations with Krishna, devotees such as Nanda, Yashoda, Subala, Sudama, the Gopis, and so on. In this way, the Bhagavata's 10th book introduces the reader to the highest form of bhakti, wherein Krishna's Yogamaya intentionally causes these unique souls to forget that he is God, so that they may nurture, protect, and even punish naughty Krishna as his parent, laugh, play, joke, and even defeat Krishna in mock fighting as his friend, or caress, embrace, and even reproach Krishna in dealings of amorous love as his paramour. The text makes clear that this form of intimate, spontaneous, loving bhakti is the highest attainment available to any living being, achieved by only the most exalted devotees of Krishna. Here it is important to point out that the Bhagavata sets this bhakti within the framework of yoga, suggesting that this bhakti is not just emotional sentiment, as Hardy suggests. The gopis are literally referred to as yogis, and Krishna is referred to as the master of yoga, Yogeshwara, or the master of all masters of yoga, Yogeshwareshwara. The fact that the Bhagavata considers the gopis, to be not only Krishna's most intimate associates, but also the highest yogis, is given sharp focus in the 10th book account of Uddhava's visit to Vrindavan. So oftentimes, Uddhava's speech to the gopis is quoted to undermine the importance of bhakti in the Bhagavata. It's oftentimes quoted to as an example to show that beyond bhakti there's jnana or there's dhyana of some form. But actually, if we carefully read the text itself, if we study the Bhagavata itself, we carefully study Uddhava's exchange with the gopis, we find that it is actually Uddhava who is transformed by the gopis' love. It is not the gopis that are transformed by Uddhava's speech. Uddhava, one of Krishna's closest friends and advisors in the kingdom of Dwarka, travels to Vrindavan to console the Brajavasis, particularly the gopis, who had been plunged into an ocean of suffering when Krishna left Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, Uddhava unsuccessfully attempts to console and pacify the gopis' feeling of separation. But in the process, he becomes so captivated by their intense devotional attachment to Krishna that he himself develops an ardent desire to obtain the very same sentiment. Uddhava himself, a highly evolved and extremely qualified associate of Krishna, recognizes the gopis' superior position, considering their bhakti to be more exalted than that which has been attained by any other category of devotee. Thus he humbly begs to be blessed with the dust of the gopis' feet. And this is a quote, Uddhava's words to the gopis. These gopis are the highest embodied beings on the earth. Their love for Govinda, Krishna, the soul of everything, is perfected. Those who are fearful of the material world aspire to this, and so do sages, and so do we ourselves. What is the use of birth, says Brahma? Aho, may I become any of the shrubs, creepers, or plants in Vrindavan that enjoy the dust of the feet of these women. They have renounced their own relatives, who are so hard to give up, and worshipped the feet of Mukunda. In the Bhagavata's third book, there is a detailed description of the eightfold yoga system, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi, similar to that of Patanjali's, presented such that the end result of yoga practice is the type of Rajalila Bhakti achieved by the gopis of Vrindavan. The major distinctions between the Bhagavad Purana and the Yoga Sutras center on the final three stages, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. In the Yoga Sutras, the object of one's dharana, holding in the mind or memory, is not very important. It is the act of dharana itself that produces the yogi's extraordinary powers. For the Bhagavata, however, the object of meditation is highly significant. Dharana is not devoid of content. The object and aim of dhyana meditation in the Bhagavata is the exquisite eternal form and lila of Krishna. In the Rasa Lila narrative, we also find the gopis deeply absorbed in specific meditation on the beauty of Krishna's face and form. Hardy lists 25 verses indicating that all the mental, emotional, and psychic processes of the gopis are concentrated on Krishna. At various places throughout the text, the Bhagavata describes that the gopis' mind, heart, intellect, consciousness, hope, and body are all absorbed in Krishna. The gopis of Vraja, singing to each other of Krishna's Leela, pass the days happily, with their hearts, that chitta, and minds, then manaska, completely absorbed in Krishna. During the Rasa Leela, as previously noted, the gopis were not conscious of Krishna's all-powerful, all-knowing, majestic feature. They simply viewed him as their beloved. Quote, O sage, they, the gopis, related to Krishna as their supreme lover, not as Brahman, the absolute truth. Unquote. Vishwanatha comments in this connection that Yogamaya makes the residents of Vrindavan, the gopis, cowherd boys, and Krishna's parents, forgetful of Krishna's power and opulence, according to the intensity of their love, prema, in a particular bhava. The word bhava can be translated as temperament, feeling, sentiment, disposition, manner of being, and relationship. The gopis' prema is imbued with madhurya bhava, amorous love, Yashoda's with vatsalya bhava, parental love, and Krishna's friends with sakya bhava, friendship. Interestingly, Vishwanatha goes on to note that when the bhava of a given Braja resident is disturbed, this results in instantaneous re-awareness that Krishna is indeed Almighty God. Thus we find in the Rasa Leela chapters that while the gopis generally relate to Krishna as their beloved cowherd boy, they awaken to his position as God in times of calamity, upon his separation, or even when he speaks to them in indifferent or sarcastic tones. Upon hearing Krishna's flute during the evening of the full moon, the gopis immediately abandoned their family members and rushed to meet him in the dead of night. However, when they arrived, Krishna appeared to be indifferent, even trying to convince them to return home. This apparent callous treatment by their most beloved is said to have disturbed the gopis' bhava. Thus their remembrance of Krishna's majesty awakened, and they began to address him more in the manner of Vedantic philosophers than amorous lovers. O Krishna, you are the eternal beloved, O soul of all. These are the gopis speaking to Krishna, and so the learned place their affection in you. What is the use of husbands and children who simply cause problems? Therefore, O Supreme Lord, be pleased with us. After Krishna accepted their request, the rasa dance began, and the gopis once again came under the influence of Yoga Maya, seeing Krishna only as their beloved lover. After some time, however, Krishna suddenly vanished from the rasa dance, leaving the gopis alone in the forest in the dead of night. This, of course, placed the gopis in great distress, disturbing their bhava yet again. Thus they regained their awareness of Krishna as God and began offering him prayers. The gopis' prayers are found in chapter 31 of the 10th book of the Bhagavata. Here's a brief rendition of but a few. O Krishna, you are not factually Yashoda's son, but are rather the indwelling witness in the hearts of all embodied beings. So here we see that the gopis were actually aware of this, yet due to their love for Krishna, they would forget that Krishna is in the hearts of all embodied beings as the Paramatma. But they had the knowledge of Krishna's greatness on account of many accounts given on account of them being sages in their last life or being great yogis who had now entered Krishna's Leela as the gopis and forgotten his Aishvarya. Because Brahma entreated you to descend, you have come to protect the universe. Your lotus hand, which holds the hand of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, removes all fear from the hearts of the fearful. Your lotus feet obliterate the accumulated sins of those that seek your shelter. And the narrations of your activities shower good fortune upon all that hear them. Perhaps what is most shocking about this unalloyed spontaneous bhakti is that this bhakti causes even Krishna to forget that he is God. During the Govardhan Leela, for example, Indra, a higher being of this universe, devastates the village of Raja with a veritable hurricane of wind, rain, and flooding, which causes all the Brajavasis to become afraid and instinctively turn to Krishna as God for protection. Despite the fact that only moments earlier they were relating to Krishna as a vulnerable child, co-equal friend, or boy-like paramour. So this following quote shows that this is not just the case of the gopis, but all the Brajavasis, all the residents of Raja remember Krishna's greatness in times of difficulty. Quote, the cows and calves, shivering because of the high wind and rain, and the gopas and gopis, afflicted by cold, approached Krishna for protection. Covering their heads and shielding their children with their bodies, shivering and tormented by the rain, they approached the souls of the feet of the Lord. Krishna, most virtuous Krishna, Master, you are compassionate towards your devotees. Please protect Gokula, which accepts you as a Lord, from the wrath of this divinity. Seeing them pounded unconscious by the excessive wind and hail, Lord Hari reflected on what Indra had done in his fury. Once the devastation is over and things return to normal, everyone's individual bhava is restored, and the Rajavasis again relate to Krishna as Krishna rather than as God. Regarding Krishna's apparent lack of self-awareness during Leela, Vishwanatha notes self-awareness, meaning awareness as God during Leela. Vishwanatha notes that although Krishna is omniscient, his desire to experience the intense prema, pure love of the Rajavasis, his most elevated devotees, prompts him to voluntarily withdraw his omniscience as he likes. Citing the example of Yashoda, he notes that her unconditional love for Krishna binds them together with ropes of mutual possessiveness and forgetfulness. Krishna is fully the child, friend, or lover to the various inhabitants of Raja, and so long as his bhava is not disturbed, he remains unmindful of the fact that he is the supreme being, the omnipotent cause of all causes, and so forth. When Krishna is frolicking in the forest with his coward boyfriends and cows, he does not remember that he is God. However, when any incident arises that places the boys and cows in jeopardy, threatens their lives, or disturbs them in any way, Krishna at once becomes God. And with only a slight portion of his inexhaustible power, immediately saves the day. This is a scenario that repeatedly plays out in 10th book narratives concerning destructive figures like Putana, Aghasura, Kaliya, Bakasura, and others. With respect to this extraordinary aspect of God's being, as presented in the Bhagavata, Vishwanatha poses the following intriguing question. During Leela, when Krishna appears to be influenced by Yoga Maya, does he truly lose awareness that he is God? Or is he merely pretending? If we take the position that Krishna is merely pretending, this calls into question his capacity to genuinely enjoy sweet, loving relations with his most intimate devotees. If, on the other hand, we take the position that Krishna factually loses cognizance of himself as God under Yogamaya's influence, this calls into question his omnipotence, omniscient status as a supreme being. Both of these alternatives seem to impose a type of limitation on that which is theoretically supposed to be unlimited. So in the Raga Bhartma Chandrika, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he raises this question that is Krishna just acting like a dramatist, like an actor, and he's simply pretending that he's a child, but he remembers that he's God? Or does Krishna actually forget that he's God? And he's simply enjoying his position as the son of Mother Yashoda, as Nanda Nandana, as Yashoda Nandana. But if he does this, if he actually forgets that he is the Supreme Lord, then how can he simultaneously keep all the universes in place? How can he simultaneously, please all of his devotees and kill the demons? So how can both things happen simultaneously? Is it one or the other? To this, Vishwanatha responds by stating that Krishna is simultaneously omniscient and self-forgetting, and that this is made possible by the means of his achintya shakti, his inconceivable energy or capacity, through which all impossibilities are made easily possible. And with the word inconceivable, achintya, we arrive at our answer, and the only answer it seems that we can have about the incomprehensible being that is God. Indeed, the effects of the Bhagavata's bhakti is completely at variance with our own experience of persons in this world. Like Plato's cave dwellers, we ask, how can we love a being, a person, with an original eternal form that never loses integrity, even as it expands such that it literally becomes, yet does not become everything, encompasses, yet does not encompass everything, exists within, yet does not exist within all? How are we to conceive the inconceivable, comprehend the incomprehensible? Only by prema, only by unalloyed bhakti. These and other such questions and answers lie at the very heart of the Bhagavata's discussion on bhakti. And these are some of the questions and answers we will ponder in this conference. The Bhagavata shows again and again throughout its pages that no one, not Kunti, not Bhishma, not Brahma, not Shiva, not the greatest saints and sages, can fully comprehend the being that is supposedly God, Krishna. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I will end at this point.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gopal Gupta ji, and your speech reminds me of something, a Subhashita, and it says, Artha aharana kaushalyam kim stumaha shastravadinam avyayebhyo ye cha arthan nishkarshanti sahasrasha. Thank you so much, sir. I now request Dr. Shakuntala Gowde, madam, to please introduce our keynote address reader, Srivatsa Goswami ji. Dr. Shakuntala Gowde, madam.
First of all, thank you, Professor Gopal Gupta ji, for wonderful inaugural address, and it has literally set the context of this international conference on Bhakti in Vaishnava traditions. So thank you so much for joining in spite of being in different time zones. So thanks a lot. Now I take the privilege. Now I'm delighted to introduce Srivatsa Goswami ji. First of all, my humble salutations and warm welcome, respected Srivatsa Goswami ji. I consider as it's our great fortune that Srivatsa Goswami ji agreed for delivering keynote address of the conference on Bhakti in Vaishnava traditions. Srivatsa Goswami ji is very well known in academia for his profound knowledge about Vaishnavism, particularly Braja Vaishnavism. So I take this opportunity to introduce him to the scholarly gathering. Srivatsa Goswami ji is an Acharya at Sri Radha Raman Mandir. Born on 27th October 1950 in Mathura, Uttar Pradesh, Srivatsa Goswami hails from an eminent family of Vaishnava scholars and artists of the Braja region. He holds a master's degree in philosophy from the Banaras Hindu University and has taught philosophy and religion at BHU. He has also been a visiting professor at Heidelberg University, Germany, and has been associated with various learned bodies, including the Indian Council of Philosophical Research, the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, and the Alliance for Religion and Conservation, based in UK. At present, he is the director of the Sri Chaitanya Prema Samsthan at Vrindavan, an institute of Vaishnava philosophy and culture. Sri Srivatsa Goswami has made a notable contribution to the study of the traditional culture of Braja region, which incorporates evolved forms of music and theatre in its modes of worship. His major works on this subject include At Play with Krishna, Pilgrimage Drama from Vrindavan, 1981, and Theatre and Religion on Krishna Stage, performing in Vrindavan in 2009. Besides many papers, among his books on contemporary religious practices are Hare Krishna, 5 Distinguished Scholars on the Krishna Movements in the West in 1983, and Seeing Krishna, the Religious World of Brahmin Family in Vrindavan in 2000. In spite of that, he is quoted by many scholars, those who are working on Braja Vaishnavism. Outside of scholarly work, he has organized a number of festivals of the music and theatre of the Braja region, besides seminars and workshops on music, religion, and philosophy. For his contribution in the field of Braja studies, Sri Srivatsa Goswami has been honored by several institutions. He is a recipient of the Kalabhushana Award conferred by the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University in 2007 and Braja Vibhuti Sanman awarded by Braja Kala Kendra Delhi in 2011. Sri Srivatsa Goswami received the Sangeet Natak Academy Award for his contribution to scholarship. So we have respected Srivatsa Goswami ji as a keynote speaker, who is not only a Vaishnava practitioner, Acharya of Radha Raman Mandir, but the contributor to the scholarly academic world as well. It is a I think this is a very rare combination in today's world. So once again, I welcome Srivatsa Goswami ji and request you to deliver the keynote address. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Gaude, for your very generous and kind words, most of which I don't deserve. But that is the way your sneha on me is. Thank you so much. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Hare Paramatmane Pranatak Kleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namah. I first bow down to all the scholars present in this wonderful conference, which I thought will be my privilege to attend. I can see some disturbance in the screen. Let me just check what is going on. I'm sorry for the interruption.
We can hear and see you fine.
But I cannot. There is some kind of flickering, a huge flickering is going on. Maybe because of some virtual background situation or something. Yeah, it's back. Sorry for that intervention. As stated in its concept note, this conference aims to look at the various manifestations of bhakti in the Vaishnava traditions. I dare not attempt to survey various Vaishnava traditions in this keynote, which will be dealt with by expert scholarship from various Vaishnava traditions themselves. I agree with the wise organizers' concept that bhakti received various philosophical dimensions in different traditions. And I shall make an humble attempt to see bhakti as an intellectual enterprise. I begin by recollecting my conversation with a great philosopher, Professor Dayakrishnan, as retold by him. He said, "It was sometime in 1987 that Srivatsa told me about the attempt of Chaitanya and his disciples to recast all knowledge in the perspective of bhakti. I had not known of the attempt, nor even those who are interested in the tradition." Professor Dayakrishnan continues to point out that there seems to be an essential difference. There was an emphasis on intellectuality that gradually seems to be missing in the anti-intellectual emotionalism that is so often associated with bhakti. And hence, it seems worth exploring further to find whether there was really an intellectual dimension of bhakti tradition. Wasn't it a contradiction in terms? And with this seeming contradiction in terms, I dare to proceed. With his blessings, with Professor Dayakrishna's blessings, we shall explore why do we feel shy of allowing bhakti as a philosophical concept. Rather, we presume that it is basically a religious idea which we want to reflect upon. In doing this inadvertently, we have carried a mindset. What philosopher Richard Rorty says, I quote, "The mindset is a product of 300 years of rhetoric about the importance of distinguishing sharply between science and religion, science and politics, science and art, science and philosophy, and so on. This rhetoric has formed the nature of Europe and made the West what it is today." And I must confess at the outset that I am not equipped for this exploration of the intellectual dimension of bhakti. However, with the grace of my two other gurus, Professor T.R.V. Murthy and Professor J.L. Mehta, I shall give an attempt. Let us begin with the term darshan itself. It is derived from the root drishya with lut pratyaya suffix added to it, which gives at least fourfold meaning to the root drish, to see. In the bhavavachya, drisher bhavaha darshanam, the seeing itself as seeing. Then in the kartari vachya, darshayati iti darshanam, one who shows, that is also to see. And then in the karmani vachya, drishyate yat tad darshanam, that which is seen. And in the last, in the karana vachya, drishyate anena iti darshanam, by which it is seen. So with that outline, darshan thus operates in the domain of bhakti as well as religion. In Heidegger's opinion, the root problem with Western thought lies in the seemingly unimportant separation of being with thinking. In Indian rhetoric, religious darshana handles being and philosophic darshana focuses on thinking. Tradition also emphasizes upon the need to overcome the duality of science and wisdom, jnanam paramaguhyam me yat vijnana samanvitam. And in that tradition, one of the finest Indian mind of the last century, Professor J.L. Mehta, tells us that, I quote, "We in India may consider ourselves lucky in having an extraordinarily rich legacy of non-representational yet stringent discursive thought which never fell out of the dimension of the holy." Is a remarkable assessment by Professor Mehta. However, Professor Mehta warns that we shall have to make our rhetoric, I quote, meaningful. Our rhetoric should be meaningful to modern scientific thought, as not something alien, but rather part of our present reality, which is the West within us. Transforming rhetoric into reality requires hard labor of thought, of turning reflection into verbal articulation, of creative self-interpretation, which is very important, creative self-interpretation, without which fruitful conversation between the Western and the Indian within us cannot be carried on. The conversation is essentially between the questioning adventure of science and the love of wisdom, unquote. Indian philosophers have religiously worshipped and adored only one God. Yo devanam namadha ekeva tam samprishnam bhuvna yanta anyaha. As the Rigveda says, that the only deity to be worshipped is Samprishna, a total questioning and a proper questioning. In this spirit, creative self-interpretation, we are engaged in conversation on a larger theme of Bhakti Mimamsa. As pointed out by Professor Dayakrishnan, I quote him, to find whether there are really an intellectual dimension of Bhakti tradition in India. But why Bhakti? Why Bhakti? Why are we obsessed with Bhakti? Again, we hear Professor Mehta saying that Bhakti is the bedrock on which man stands and moves in his endeavor to live and understand life, to act morally in its conduct, and to come in terms with the perturbations of heart that his flesh is heir to, the ground on which its variegated forms and expressions have their play. Moreover, our enterprise of thinking about Bhakti come from Professor Dayakrishnan's inspiring and challenging words. He says, supposing there is no literal evidence about the philosophical aspect of Bhakti, can we not start a philosophical tradition of thinking now? Amazing. What is this Bhakti as the bedrock of human life? It has been said, Suparnam vipraha kavyoho vacho vihe ekam satatam bahudha kalpayanti. Then that one and unique non-dual truth, which by the seers have been spoken about in various ways, so which form and expression of Bhakti's variegated play are we going to enjoy in this brief presentation? Actually, after hearing Professor Gopal Gupta's wonderful comprehensive presentation, most of what I'm going to say and you are going to hear will be mostly redundant. But however, since I have been asked to do some seva, I will continue with your grace. And in that process, I shall try to capture the Vedantic viewpoint of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, 1486-1533, and his school of thought. Chaitanya probably had heard Professor Dayakrishnan challenging words that supposing there is no literal evidence about the philosophical aspect of Bhakti, can we not start a philosophical tradition of thinking now? And in response, Chaitanya responds thus, and I quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Brihat Vastu, Brahman is Bhagavan, the absolute truth. All the Vedas relate to Bhagavan as the Sambandhi Tattva. All the discursive knowledge relates only to the reality called Bhagavan. And the forms of bhakti like Shravana, Kirtana, etc. are all means of gaining, relating with Bhagavan Krishna, and thus they are called Abhidheya, the means. And from sadhana bhakti sprouts the prema bhakti at the feet of Krishna, and from it one gains the rasa of the happiness of the service of Krishna. That loving service is Pancham Purushartha. Sei Premo Mahadhan is the Prayojan Tattva. That is the treasure of all intellectual enterprise. These three, Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana, fully cover the philosophical discourse, and I unquote. But let us see how. Mysteries all around. They trigger quest in human mind. What is it all about? And who has done it? Why is it all there? And so on. All this questioning and quest go on. And this search for meaning of life then is a second order question. The primary question is, in Chaitanya's view, who is searching? Who is questioning? Whose question is this? Meaningfully, all the searches begin with oneself. As we directly encounter ourselves only, however vaguely it might be. And in that encounter with ourselves, we first come to know that we are. Then the second awareness which dawns is that my existence is meaningful till I am aware of my existence. So the first characteristic of myself awares as Sat, I am, my being. And then I'm aware of my being, that is my consciousness, the Chit. But when the consciousness dawns, then the question comes, why? And the answer is happiness. I want to be free from pain, suffering, all the abhavas. Yato abhyudayaha nishreyas siddhi. So my self-identity emerges as Sat, Chit, and Ananda. One who is there, who is aware being there, and is searching for that bliss. Yet the question still remains, despite our Sat, Chit, and Ananda essential nature, why do we suffer? Why do we suffer? In Chaitanya's understanding, suffering lies in not realizing that worldly wealth, goodies, and persons in themselves are not the source of happiness. Rather, it lies in our relationship with them. Moreover, the transitory nature of our relation with wealth, objects, or any person causes suffering, because when our relation with them snaps, it is painful. That's why nalpena sukham yova bhuma yovai bhuma tadaiva sukham. And then at that point, the journey for the infinite, from the limited to the unlimited, from transitory to the eternal begins. We are launched into the journey of the infinite existence, infinite consciousness, and infinite bliss. What and how shall we relate with? Kasmai Devaya Avisha Vidhema. What is that infinite blissful reality to whom we have to offer ourselves or relate with? The Chaitanyites say there are two ways to find out. First, intellectually, via negativia, neti, neti. And the path is shown as the Tattva Sandarbha says, Swayam Vam Devader Eva Maya Mayat Anusandhanen Reva. Essentially focusing in exploring what is not real, focusing upon exploring the unreal, the available external phenomena. Maya Mayatto Anusandhanena. So focusing upon what is not. And in that process, in the path of philosophical analysis, the realization of our limitation then becomes the threshold of our awareness of the unlimited. Reason or logic, etc., does not create the infinite or the eternal truth. It merely removes doubts, asambhavana, and conflicting views, viparit bhavanas, about the truth. Thus, through logic and philosophical discourse, the ultimate is revealed, not created. There is another way, and that is the second alternate way is when we dig deeper into the given experience. This experiential journey is the path of religion, a journey within. Anushtitena yogena va. So, having arrived at either philosophically or religious spiritually, what is that tattva? What is that ultimate reality? What is that absolute we are searching for? So, vadanti tat vidastatvam yajnanam advayam. The result of all intellectual enterprise in the realm of reality takes us to the knowledge of tattva, the thatness of whatever it is, thatness of whatever that is, the reality as a non-dual absolute. Further, from that non-dual absolute manifests definitely variously, as we find reflected in the documents of those who have experienced that absolute. They say, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Or in the language of Bhagavat, that Advaitattvam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdyate. The question is, if the absolute is so non-dual, and yet it is variously expressed, what is the need for various expression about the non-dual absolute? The non-duality is compromised by these various expressions of it. Are these various expressions like Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam Brahma, Anandam Brahma, or Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan? What are they? Are they synonyms? Are they mere anuvad of each other? If so, then they are redundant. We could have just said Sat, because if Chit and Anand is a mere repetition and translation of the first term, then there is no need philosophically to use three different terminologies: Satyam, Jnanam, Anandam, or Anantam. They will become redundant if it is just a repetition or anuvad. So that means they are sui generis and exclusive manifestation of the non-dual. If so, then the absolute will lose its non-duality. Because if Sat cannot be reduced to Chit and Chit cannot be reduced to Ananda, then the ultimate reality, which is denoted by these terminologies, will be no more non-dual. The Chaitanyites understand this variety of absolutes in these words. The philosophers in the tradition say, Atha tvam advaya jnanam lakshanam tat tattvam samanyato lakshitva brahma etc. Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti shabdate. Punaha upasak yogyata vaishishtyena pragatita nija satta vishesham. In Datta Sandarbha, they say that tattva is definitely Advaita tattva, non-dual, but it is manifested as Brahman and Paramatman and Bhagavan, etc. It is open-ended denotations, lists, terminologies. Because of the upasak yogyata vaishishtyena, the uniqueness of the nature of the seeker who is seeking the ultimate, because of the point of departure of the seeker, the same non-dual reality manifests in a different form, different dimension manifestation. So the Vedantic concept of Sat Chit Ananda and the paths, or the what we call the yoga of Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, is never missing from the discourse of traditional Indian philosophy right from the Vedic times. This discourse got its contemporary avatar in a dense and analytical thought of Professor Krishna Chandra Bhattacharya. And for our purposes, his student, Professor T.R.V. Murthy, who was probably unaware of the Chaitanyite analysis of the subject, for us, the elaboration given by Professor Murthy in his classic essay, Knowing, Willing, and Feeling as Functions of Consciousness in 1934, will be very useful. And I'm tempted to share a few lines from him to begin with. He says, we start with two entities, consciousness and content. Content can be understood as object in any sense, the presented something. Consciousness as knowing, willing, and feeling may be conceived prima facie as modes of attending to the object, as modes of relation of attention to object. And there can be three sets of relation between consciousness and content. He continues, one, in which the content determines the mode of attention. Attention is, as it were, entirely lost in the object and not vice versa. In the second mode, or second, in which consciousness determines the content and not vice versa, or that in which the determination is either way. If the third alternative is not to be a mere repetition of the former two, it must mean that attention and consciousness mutually determine each other. That is, the determination is not separately distinguishable or achintya. The whole thing is indeterminate. Fourthly, it might be thought that neither determines the other. The two things are separate and unconnected. But this tantamount to denying all relation. The two things fall asunder, and we cannot speak of them even as two. That will be pure agnosticism. Our a priori scheme has thus yielded only three modes of relation, Professor Murthy says, between consciousness and content, and these can be identified as knowing, willing, and feeling, respectively. Following the path of philosophical analysis, the Chaitanyites understand that our psychological makeup conditions our quest, our path, The path are thus qualified as cognitive, cognitive, and emotive. In this scheme of understanding, if the aspect of the seeker is cognitive, then the status of the reality is objective, vastu tantram. And the path will be jnana, knowledge, and the goal will be sat, tattva. In the cognitive aspect, the status will be subjective, param ahanta, as in Kashmir Shaivism or Vijnanvada, etc. The path will be our will, our karma, and the goal will be consciousness, chit, tattva of the absolute. In the third emotive aspect, subject and object both are together. And the path is feeling or bhakti, and the goal is ananda. This scheme given by the analysis is the moment of epiphany in not only the Indian, but human history, when the three unique dimensions of the ultimate reality are revealed as Sat, Chit, Ananda, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. It is also evident from this analysis that in the path of knowledge and will, relation is not possible. Relation, however, cannot be discarded as it is a fact of experience. It is only in the feeling mode that the relation is not only available, but it is presupposed. From there, we may move to the search for the summum bonum, the purushartha. That state of nishreyasa siddhi is the state of happiness beyond any suffering. For happiness, we seek relationship. We have seen that before. Rather, we cannot discount relation if we are searching for happiness. Nature and function of relation is naturally to bring two together, subject or object together. What then are the modes of relationships? Professor Gopal has beautifully said, a look, but rather looking at Bhagavad Purana, I would like to look at the human phenomena. What does it reveal? How do we understand and get the categories of relationships in the human arena, which has a variety of these relationships. So which can be classified as professional relations, as filial relations, as friendships, and intimate relations, which Bhagavad translates as dasya, vatsalya, sakhya, and madhurya. These are all sui generis in their own right, but there is a hierarchy because the barometer of the quality of relationship is intimacy and immediacy. So between these four, Eichar bhave diye nachabo bhuvan, dasha shakha vatsalya ar madhujyo, there is a hierarchy because vatsalya is more intimate than dasya, sakhya is more intimate than vatsalya, and madhurya is most intimate than any of the relationships. So the amorous or the erotic kanta kanta bhav includes and transcends all other relations. I don't have the facility to explore further on that or elaborate on that. But relation established, the concern then is towards the process of sustaining it. संबंध तो बनता है, किंतु संबंध को निभाने के लिए क्या चाहिए? For sustaining relationship, the means for excellence, the Chaitanya would say, is service, seva or bhakti. Bhakti bina jagater nahi avasthan. This world of relationships will collapse without seva or service. But what kind of service? They want, definitely the service should not be for show off or a hypocritic nature or done under duress. It should be done only out of love, only out of concern for the person with whom we are related and we are serving to, which we call the prema bhakti. That is the best mode of relationship. So any seeker on the path of prema bhakti, as delivered by the philosophical analysis, has to benefit from the experience of the realized ones. We require sakshat krita dharmana risheha, one who has encountered the dharma, the sustaining factors, processes and values hand to hand. So Rishi is one who has seen firsthand, Rishir Darshanat. But why do we need them? We need them because this is a natural requirement out of human predicament. Indispensability of learning from a living teacher for humans to do anything in their life. Humans do not accomplish anything which they have not learned. And that's why they say, Gurur anugraheneva puman purna prashantaye. The full totality, total experience of happiness and peace will dawn only with the grace of a teacher. So the focal point of Hindu spirituality across traditions is Vahe Guru. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, etc. So the Guru is the one who switches us on, who ignites that fire of consciousness and bliss in our being. Then, under Guru's guidance, we require to learn to do Premmayi Seva. Thus, we come at the injunctional devotional, the grammar of bhakti called the Vaidhi Bhakti. Learning grammar is a human predicament in all spheres, from mundane to the spiritual. Hence, the ninefold steps of bhakti as a spiritual discipline, Shramana of the mantra, the planting of seed from a guru. He will tell us whom to relate to. Then whatever you have learned, you repeat it. And then the sprouting and unfolding of that seed takes place. And through smarana, you nourish that sprouting, that podha. And then by pada sevana and archana, you adore, you water the green fields, and then you celebrate. But this leads us to the second stage of discipline of bhakti, where love takes its own course. The injunctions and grammar mature into spontaneity of poetry of love, which is Vandana, Dasya, Sakhya, and Atmanivedan. The final stage of total merger, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Braja. Thus, a seeker purified through this discipline of Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti can search for the mysteries. Now, what is the mystery of total union in the Atmanivedan, total surrender, in that yoga? For the Jnana Yogi, the meeting point is Brahma, is total objective. The subjective is totally lost, vanishes. For the Karma Yogi, Paramatma is the result. Paramatma is the yogi, where the subjective remains, the Param Ahanta remains, the cosmic ego remains, rest all objective world vanishes. But for Bhakti Yogi, Bhagavan is a mixture, is a union of subject and object, which includes and transcends Sat and Chitta, Gyan and Karma, both. From the perspective of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a seeker cherishes the ultimate experience as Brahman, which is a perfect union of the substance, which is Ananda, and its blissing potency, Ahadani Shakti, Krishna and Radha, Purush and Prakriti, male and female, etc. In this ultimate relationship, Prema Bhakti, the loving service itself is the goal, Bhakti as means and Bhakti as the goal. Sadhya and sadhan both becomes Bhakti. Do I have some more minutes? What is the time you're saying? I'm sorry. Professor Gaude?
Yes, you can continue.
Okay, thank you so much. I will take another 5 to 10 minutes. So this metaphysical, ontological reality of Bhagavan is explained by the Upanishads as two lovers totally consumed in Prema Bhakti. Tad yatha priyaya striya samparishwaktaha na bahyam kinchan veda na antaram. As a man embraced by his beloved is oblivious to everything within or without, says Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. In this intense moment, two lovers transcend their separate identity into the non-duality of the bliss experience. Here the other, or the duality of the male, female, etc., is never denied, yet there emerges a feeling, naso ramana na ham ramani, duhumana manobhava peshal jani, the consciousness of male and female has flown into each other. E sakhi se sab prema kahani. Such is the story of love. So reflection on this experience provides us with a new system of logic, which is difference, non-withstanding. Non-difference is the culmination, bhedha, bhed, the seeming opposites coming together. And then the Chaitanyaites say, apare tu tarka pratishthanat iti nyayena bhedepi abhedepi nirmaryad dosha santati darshanena, with the fallacy of the infinite regress, because the difference begs the question of non-different, because different from what? That presupposes an identity or non-difference, and the non-difference presupposes difference. So there will be a fallacy of infinite regress if we think about. So bhinnataya chintayantum ashaktvatat abhedam sadhyatum. So one begs the question of the other. So ultimately, neither the bhed nor the abhed. Tadvad abhinnataya api chintayantum ashaktvatvat bhedam api sadhayato. They say the resolution comes of this dilemma from the logical category of achinta bheda abheda vadam swikarvanti swamate tu achinta bhed abhedam eva achintya shakti mayatvat iti. In the Priti Sandarbha Sarva Sambhadani, they conclude from that like this. So from the point of view of conventional logic, it seems inconceivable. Yes, it does, but only from the point of view of the logic of binary opposites. Logic, however, should conform to a fact of experience. It cannot happen in a vacuum. And relation and love are facts of experience and life. However achint or mystical it might appear to the fettered reasoning of binary opposites, the inconceivable difference in non-difference, achint bheda bhed, is the logic of love and mysticism. Indian thought and spirituality calls that aesthetic experience as rasa, raso vaisaha. This aesthetic experience, rasanubhuti, is described as a vidvat rahasya anubhava, a mystical experience of the accomplished. Traditionally speaking, the ras is experienced in asampragyat samadhi, distinction-less state of mind, muka swadanvat, which cannot be spoken about. However, there are processes in place in the Indian philosophical and spiritual tradition to express the inexpressible. Vedas, Upanishads, Yoga Sutras, Natya Shastra, Rasa Shastra, poetry, music, etc. are humble yet honest attempts of translating the intuitive experience through language of the discursive realm. This is an act of karuna or compassion, a great service to humanity, and what Professor Mehta summarizes as, he says, understood in this metaphysical, non-psychological sense of feeling, prema bhakti or loving devotion represents man's primordial relationship to its being. It is the supreme privilege of man's mortal state and the ultimate refuge in his search for wholeness and for being healed, unquote. In review and conclusion, we find that out of the three alternative spiritual paths of Jnana, Karma, and Bhakti, the last one is appropriately called in the Bhagavad Mahatmya as the mother of Jnana and Karma and Vairagya. T.R.V. Murthy rightly concludes, unaware of the Bhagavad conclusion, he says, feeling is more basic and primitive than the other two. It is thicker, unquote. Bhakti includes both the subjective and the objective realities and yet transcends them in a mystical union where there is no awareness of the duality of any kind. Bhakti is the means par excellence for a spiritual realization. Done. But a question arises, and how does this bhakti dance in this mundane world? How do we encounter it? Bhakti, to be useful to mankind, had to have a body beyond a mere abstract philosophical idea or a doctrine. Unquote. I quote now. However, Professor Mehta continues, he says, however, one should not overrate the part played by a scholarship and the theoretical understanding of things in the task of regeneration of humanity. And this is a warning from Professor T.R.V. Murthy. He reminds us that history does not record a single instance of a spiritual revolution of global dimension brought out by a band of scholars and skillful thinkers. The malady of the world is far too universal and deep-seated for remedies to be prescribed directly from books, unquote. So true. That can happen only when it is practiced not only as a means of realization, as an abhidheya, but also as a prayojan. Nij na achorile bhakti shikhano na jaye. One such example, living example of prema bhakti is definitely Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya is regarded as a joint incarnation of Radha and Krishna, the male and the female, the divine and the human, goal and the means, the subject and the object, the seeming opposites in one body. Here, Achinta Bheda Bhed Vad is personified in one body as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His activities are life-affirming, singing, dancing, relating, and always serving with love. Sri Chaitanya is totally grounded in tradition, yet adds new dimension to the philosophical discourse and his spiritual discipline. And this is my offering to the learned gathering to correct me or to take the points further and forward. Chaitanya not only liberates the logical mind from the boundaries of binary opposites, Bhed and Abhed, he also reviews the Chaturvarga system of fourfold Samam Bonums of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, and adds Prema Bhakti as the supreme Samam Bonam, Prema Pamartho Mahan. And he says, Chirakala Ami Nahi Kori Prema Bhakti Dan. And for that Anarpita Charim Chirat, he descended in our history out of his karuna. He had no need to teach or preach, but for being compassionately compelled, he had to intervene to samarpayatum ujjwala rasam prema bhakti dan korte unake este holo. So param tattva swakshatkara lakshanam tat jnanam eva paramananda prapti saiva parama purushartha. He concludes, the knowledge which consists only of direct experience of the transcendental reality is the attainment of ultimate bliss, unquote. With this growth of Purusharth tradition, the Pancham Purusharth, the growth of the Shastra Parampara was imperative. Now the fifth Veda had to be added to the established four Vedas, and that is Srimad-Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam, where you have to have Shraddha, but never denounce any other's book of faith. He adds a new dimension to the Prasthana Trayi, and this is very revolutionary on the path of a Vedantic discipline, which Chaitanya was adhering to, that Gita, Brahma Sutra, and Upanishads had to be the Prasthana Trayi. Chaitanya includes them in Bhagavat and transcends them. That Arthoyam Brahma Sutranam, and it is the Sarva Vedanta Saram Hi, everything is included in Bhagavat, and Bhagavat then transcends the traditional Prasthana Trayi. But however, he also adds Rasa Prasthana to the Shastric tradition. Now, Jayadev, Vidyapati, Chandidas, Bilva Mangal, and others become the religious and spiritual voice. Another distinctive characteristic of Bhakti in Chaitanya's tradition is the humanization, which Professor Gopal spoke so beautifully, the humanization of the divine. Krishnera Jyoteka Khela Sarva Sreshta Nara Leela. The impersonal metaphysical Brahman is transformed as the dancing flute player. Or, additionally, the religious rituals evolved as aesthetic activities, as fine arts, performing arts were at the center of ritual. Krishna Kirtana, Palagan, Samaj Kirtan, Shringar, Poshak, Pool Banglas, Sanji, Ras Leelas, paintings, frescoes, and so on is manifestation of that Prema Bhakti. And that ritual requirement gave birth to rare and finest temple architecture, sculpture, and many other artistic disciplines in Vrindavan and throughout the country. Finally, this arduous, or I do not know, an unsuccessful journey tried to visit the intellectual dimension of Prema Bhakti. What I attempted, with your permission, the last sentence which I will say is this, that this Achinta Bheda Bhed Vedanta of Sri Chaitanya and his followers seems to engage well, not just in the discourse of philosophy. Its aesthetic inclusiveness provides a framework for a dialogue between various viewpoints in social and political fields as well. We do not have the facility of time to go into that today. On the Ras Mandal of Bhakti, supported by the inclusive Achintya Bheda Bhedavada, every viewpoint is welcome to dance, but with a condition. Sri Chaitanya warns in his words, if you are humbler than a blade of grass, if you are forbearing like a tree, if you do not care for your ego and pride, and if you are willing to respect others, then only one can sing and dance in the love of the Lord. Thank you so much for bearing with me, for listening to a fool's song. Thank you so much.
I am reminded of Bhagavad-Pada Shankaracharya and a quote from his Krishnashtakam. To thank you, sir, that Vinayasya dhyanam brajati pushutam sukara mukham Vinayasya jnanam janimriti bhayam yati janata Vinayasya smritya krimishata janim yati savibuhu Sharanyo lokeshu mama bhavata krishnu akshi vishaya. May that Krishna be in front of me whenever I do this. And Radhe Radhe Guruji, thank you Srila Srivatsa Goswami ji. We visualize how through your how through your Vak Shri Vatsalya Amrita Varsha that everyone assembled here will agree to this, that we really enjoyed your Vak Shri Vatsalya. It is Shri Vatsa, so I made it Shri Vatsalya.
Thank you.
Vak Shri Vatsalya Amrita Varsha, and everyone will agree to it, and we're stunned.
I needed your Vatsalya Kripa.
Yes. Mahabhaga, I am reminded of the Yamala Arjuna Stuti from Srimad-Bhagavatam, where it is said, Vani Gunanukathani Shravanau Kathayam Hastau Chakarmasu Manastava Padayo Hona Smrityam Shiraha Tava Nivasa Jagat Pranami Drishtis Satam Darshani Astu Bhavat Tanunam Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Sammitam Bhakti Jnana Viraganam Sthapanaya Prakashit Srimad, and therefore Srimad-Bhagavatam Shravyam Shoka Dukkha Vinashanam Dhanyaha Vayam Punascha Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Our next speaker was our chairperson, Professor Ravindra Kulkarni, but I am informed that due to hectic schedule, it has been conveyed that Professor Dr. Ravindra Kulkarni, the Pro Vice Chancellor, University of Mumbai, the chairperson for the seminar, expresses his inability to join today's session, and he quotes from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-Gita. He says, Karmanyeva Karmanyevati adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachat. So, though much he would have loved to munch the Shukhamukhat Amrutadrava Rasayuktam Phalam, but his dharma, that is the karma towards university work, has become a small hurdle. But Sir has promised us to cross over this hurdle and join us for the valedictory function and partake the Mahaprasada by being Mahaprasada of Bhakti Sudha Tarangi. I now invite and request Dr. Ferdinando Serradella, Associate Professor, History of Religions, Stockholm University, Sweden, to present a vote of thanks for this inaugural session. Sir, Dr. Ferdinando Serradella.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you so much. I have a few points. Dear Vice Chancellor, professors, lecturers, PhD students, and dear guests, the initial program about International Conference on Bhakti in Vaishnava traditions and here. And we move to the first sessions right away. I would like to say a few words about two examples of points about the conference topic. A distinction is often made in discussing the philosophical basis of traditional bhakti between saguna, with guna or attributes, and nirguna without attributes, which indicates two different approaches to the divine. Saguna bhakti is often applied in relation to iconic worship of high personal deities such as Lord Vishnu, Rama, Krishna, Lakshmi, Radha, Sita, and their avatars and associates. Although bhakti involves paying homage to an image or icon, there are a number of Vaishnava communities that worship an image as only a means of realizing an ultimate reality that is devoid of attributes. In such cases, the worship of an image is conceived only as a transitory stage meant to ease meditation, and is forsaken when later phases of development are thought to have been reached. Vaishnava Saguna Bhaktas, on the other hand, largely claim to worship a supreme being or person who, while devoid of material attributes, is nonetheless endowed with metaphysical attributes that include personality, form, spiritual senses, place, activities, associates, and paraphernalia. The distinction between Nirguna and Saguna Brahman in Vaishnavism is clearly outlined in the traditional philosophical schools of Vedanta, and it has been pointed out and discussed for centuries by great gurus and teachers. This is an example of important topics for discussions. I would like to say also a few words about sampradayas for Vaishnava traditional bhakti. Contrary to what their frequent neglect within scholarship in this area might suggest, the various currents of Sampradayik traditional Hinduism that so dominated the history and dynamics of pre-colonial India's religious field do not simply disappear with the advent of British colonialism and the emergence of modern Hindu Renaissance discourse in the subcontinent and even the present time. Rather, they continue to exert a potent hold over the Hindu imaginary in various ways. Moreover, and at least in part because of their more expensive demographic reach, these currents often reached a far greater spectrum of religious and cultural forms than their Renaissance counterparts did, and many other later. Exploration of the legacy of Sampradayik traditional Hindu and Vaishnava currents in colonial and postmodern South Asia thus potentially offers a much richer, more representative picture of religious life in this context than that afforded by analysis determined only by for example, the Renaissance paradigm. Just a few thoughts about the importance today of bhakti in Vaishnava traditions. So I would now like to thank Dr. Shakuntala Gavde for the excellent introduction, as well as Dr. Sumanta Rudra about the Bhaktivedanta Research Center. I would like to thank Dr. Gopal Gupta for his wonderful inaugural speech. And about it, I can say just a few words about it. Professor Gopal Gupta's speech told about gopis and Krishna. The Bhagavata explains that the intense pain of separation from Krishna burned away the gopis' past karma and unshackled them from bodies comprised of the gunas. He presents unalloyed bhakti prema that focuses on spontaneous attraction to Krishna's service in his presentation. Bhagavata Purana set his bhakti within the framework of yoga. Uddhava himself, a highly evolved and extremely qualified associate of Krishna, recognizes the gopis' superior position. Their object of dhyana, meditation, in the Bhagavata is the exquisite eternal form and lila of Krishna. Gopis saw Krishna only as their most beloved lover. The Vraja Vashis, the inhabitants of Vraja, their intense prema, pure love, prompts Krishna to voluntarily withdraw his omniscience, and he likes. Professor Gupta presents of different theories and concludes by stating that the Bhagavata shows again and again that no one can fully comprehend the being that is supposedly God, Krishna, as a natural topic of challenge and topic of discussion. And then I would like to thank Shivatsa Goswami, who is Acharya in Radharaman Mandir, the honorary president, serving religions for peace, a very deep presentation where he mentioned that Bhakti has various intellectual currents, and we can understand Bhakti as a philosophical element as well, with challenges of differences between science and religion, which is very much coming from the West as well. And he presents very specific aspects of philosophy regarding Vaishnavism, starting with Drish, and presented different the importance of being and self-interpretations, and analyzing, for example, Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana, and giving different analysis of important aspects in Vaishnava philosophy, such as Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, based on relations with sustaining relationships that linked seva and bhakti with service. We hear about, of course, the differences between Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, of Achintya, Beda, Beda Tattva, the oneness and difference, which is a very complex aspect of particularly Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Chaitanya Vaishnavism. And we hear also at the end that Achintya Beda Beda is not only about philosophy, but is a topic that can be also discussed within sociology, social sciences, and other fields. And the importance of in Vaishnavism in general as a field to have humility at its heart. So thank you very much for Acharya Shivatsa Goswami for an excellent presentation. I would like to thank the Pro-Vice Chancellor Ravindra Kulkarni. He could not come today, but for his mention. And in general, thank you so much for this first introduction part of the conference. I leave the word to the next speech. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Fernando, for this bouquet of gratitude. Everyone will be, I think, will be overwhelmed. I now declare this inaugural session over. We go for a lunch break from now till 2:30. Am I right, Madam Shakuntala? We join at 2?
No, we have to join at 2 for Gauranga Prabhu's lecture.
Yeah.
There will be a special session on Bhakti in Bhakti Rasamruta Sindhu by Gauranga Prabhu from 2 to 2:30. And then we will start with the academic session at 2:30. So please, this be noted by all.
We now go for our lunch break from 12:30 to 2, 90 minutes exact. And then we join back for the much awaited special lecture by Srila Gauranga Das Prabhuji. Thanks all.
Thank you all.